So I had worked really hard on, well, really hard. I had worked pretty hard or moderately hard on like putting together a script about a phenomenon I wanted to talk about, and I did all this script writing and recording and making jokes and doing all the sorts of funny YouTube content creator shit. Um, and I put it together and I recorded it and I edited the volume levels and I stitched it all together and it wound up being like 15 minutes and I was about to start putting visuals in and then I realized I it doesn't seem like I didn't want to. It doesn't seem like me. Like I put the effort in to do it, but I think especially for this topic, it's probably just better to just talk about it. So I took the script, turned it into bullet points, and I'm just gonna rattle this shit off here right quick. I don't know what it is, but people have such an inferiority complex with this game. And I see it constantly, and I'll tell you a little anecdote which kind of inspired this video here in just a second. But I mean, you hear like, I'll never get an Infernal Cape, or raiding is just too hard for me, I get nervous at Jads, and then, it's all combined into the whole I'm bad at RuneScape shtick. And I don't know where this comes from. And before we get too deep into this, I want to preface this with two things, right? Like, one, if you just like don't care about late game PVM, but like you don't want your Infernal Cape, you don't want your Fang kits or your pet transmogs or a bunch of Top KC, then fine, based, W take, what a Chad, all that stuff. I would encourage you to like try it because a lot of the late game content is phenomenal and a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and love were poured into making it for all its horror and all its glory. It's certainly good content. Who knows? Maybe you'll love it, right? So there's number one. You don't want to. I'm not gonna sit here and fucking tell you to go do it. I'm not your dad. The second one, of course, though, is who am I to talk, right? Like, I've seen this comment a couple of times, but like I got like 7,000 next KC from AFKing in mass. Highly recommend that, by the way. Made a lot of money doing that, and then I've only got one Infernal Cape and one Quiver, and it makes like you'd be completely valid in thinking, who the fuck is this guy to talk about the wonders of late game PVM? He's got like 10 top KC. Where am I at? 6. I have 6 top KC, right? Like, who the fuck is this guy to talk about this shit, right? I'd argue that I'm coming from an angle of someone who truly doesn't have a lot of time to get super practiced at the game. I'm still bad at like feeling ticks. I don't have the ability to like, I don't have all this esoteric knowledge. I don't like really hard study the game. I don't sit and watch like 3-hour guides. I can't. I don't have the time for it. And I think that does put me in kind of a unique position to encourage some of the other folks who might be feeling similarly to give this a shot. So with those two things out of the way, there's 4 big things that I think are really holding people back from trying the late game content, or kind of contribute to this air of like, oh, I'll never do it, I'll never accomplish it. The first one is definitely expectations. When you play this game, like you're watching it right now, right? Like I left click pillar and I sit there and we listen to the tink 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 of the mining that we all know from 20 years ago that they haven't changed the sound of. It's very simple. It's very like down to earth. And when you like contrast this of sitting here and mining with late game PVM, like especially like if you watch like the 8-man TOA world record speed runs, it's like the wild coordination, all the shit that's happening on the screen, the tile markers, the attempting to push time, and all of this important knowledge that you need in order to perform at that peak. It's maybe not a turn off, but it's definitely jarring to say the least. It is way different. And you start playing RuneScape and you left click a goblin and kick him in the balls until he falls on the ground. That is far different from anything you'll see inside of any raids or even late game bossing. So it's kind of like Whiplash. The expectation is not very well set when you jump into this game. And I see Jagex trying. Scurrius, phenomenal addition. Pericodal and Axolotl or Amoxolotl, I don't fucking know. All the mid-game stuff that they're adding that's supposed to be like, check out these mechanics. These will help you later down the line. That stuff's good, and it helps bridge that gap. But it's still at the end of the day really weird going from left-click minion, watch it die, to all of these game mechanics. And I think that can definitely shock some people, especially those who like start playing the game, really enjoy it, and then don't realize what the end game has in store. It's easy to see that and be like, nope, not for me. Fuck that. The second thing is game mechanics. Kind of in a similar vein, there is a lot of esotericism that goes on with the game mechanics here. Like, for example, why can I eat a shark, an octopus, and a yellow potion all in one tick, but I can't eat 3 sharks? And what is a game tick, right? Like, a lot of people don't know what the fuck a game tick is, and that's completely fine. For a lot of people, that's a swear word. You don't say tick. How come, like, how many people, when you're starting the game, know that when you run, like, I got my true tile on, and a lot of you know what that is, but how many people know that you actually teleport when you run? Fucking no one. Not a single person, because that is not explained anywhere, to my knowledge. When you first boot up the game, I don't think anyone tells you that your character teleports server side when you start running. Did you know that when moving, enemies prioritize going east to west instead of north to south? No. Why would you? Why would you need to know that knowledge? But, you know, it's helpful to know that in things like the Inferno. Is it necessary to know that? No, but it's helpful to know that. And I think as people start to learn all these weird, funky mechanics, people begin to, like, kind of shy away. Like, do I need to combo eat inside of raids? And do I need to know that things go east to west? No. But when you start understanding that there's a lot of fucking jank under the hood, I think it's another reason why people are just like, no, I just play this game to left-click thing and to watch it die, or I don't want to know that I should be eating right at an XP drop, or I don't want to know any of this stuff. I just want to left click and watch it die. And it's 100% possible to go through without knowing any of this knowledge, right? You don't have to combo eat through a raid. You don't have to know that things move east to west. You don't need to know when is an appropriate time to click the food or switch the prayers or whatever. You can do this game entirely based off of feel and off of audio cues and visual cues. But a lot of people are really hung up on like efficiency-scape. And so most of the guides and information that you hear out there is based off of those under the hood game mechanics. And I think that turns a lot of people off. Now, is that to say you shouldn't learn these mechanics? Not necessarily, but can you see how maybe like as someone first trying to dip their toes into late game content sees a guide out there about like how to off tick and, you know, what a game tick is and when you should be eating and all this sorts of under the hood stuff that isn't really explained in game is now suddenly being thrown at them, and they're like, yeah, maybe not. The third thing is it's work. It's definitely work. And to learn Tob, to learn the Inferno, Coliseum, you know, get your Fang Kit at TOA, whatever, it's work. You know, you will die. You'll die a lot. I like to use this example of fucking Gnome Monkey. He's still, like, when he records Inferno guides with new stuff, he still fucking planks at, like, triple jads and stuff. I feel like people are so afraid of dying, and I'll touch on that a little bit later, but, like, it's a work. You don't learn a skill overnight, and that's what this is. Like, game content, high-level stuff is work. It's part of the game. You lose games sometimes, you know, it's just how it goes, and 100% fair. Like, I get that some people get an hour a day to play. Believe me, I know, and they don't want to spend that hour dying 3 times in a TOA run and then going to bed, right? Like, it's not fun necessarily for a lot of people. And again, I get it. Mad respect. W take. And so that kind of brings us to the fourth and final one, which I think is the biggest and basically what I want to talk about in its entirety. And, you know, those 3 contribute to this, but it's the mental game, man. I reiterate, some people just don't want to do late game stuff, but for the people who do want to do late game stuff, they do want to put in the work, they do want to learn the mechanics, they do have the expectation of this is how late game stuff goes, and they want to be a part of it and enjoy this content. Dude, I see so many people beat themselves up constantly. And here's the anecdote that I was talking about. I was in a stream the other day, and I was watching this guy do Coliseum, and someone in the chat was like, I have died several hundred times. I've been to Soul 4 times. And I keep planking. And the streamer was a sweetheart about it, and he was like, oh, you'll get it, you just gotta keep trying. And the guy just, like, I don't want to say he kept complaining, but he kept, like, talking about how he's unable to do this. He just can't. He chokes up. He gets so nervous. This seems to be the big thing I see with people who want to do late game content but can't. There seems to be some overarching inferiority complex that goes on with every single person who plays this game. Like, I see even people who are like, I would consider high level, being like, I don't know shit about this game. Don't ask me questions. I'm not very good. And they're sitting there in like full Blorva, 1,000 top KC, and like people you'd expect to know shit about the game are even like, no, I don't know anything about this game. Don't ask me questions. It's like, come on, man. You clearly know more than most. I don't think it's like far-reaching of me to say that this is probably close to, well, let me say this. Most of the player base does not know about late game. Most of the people who play this fucking game show up like once every couple of months to hang out with their buddies and shit, right? We all know that. The average person has like 1,500 total level. But for those of you that are like real enjoyers of the MMO, I think we've hit like a Dunning-Kruger effect almost, where like you're not arrogant, you don't know too much, but you're now in like this pit of, I don't fucking know anything, I can't do shit, right? And you do. You know more than you give yourself credit for, and you can do more than you give yourself credit for. And I don't know where this inferiority complex comes from, where this Dunning-Kruger effect comes from, this valley of negativity. I have my theories. Maybe it's the expectation that was set in the early game, like I talked about, right? Like this entire game is, I hate to say it, but it's pretty fucking simple. Left click to move somewhere, and right click to interact with something. That's it. It's a game that requires 2 fucking buttons. It's not that complex. Under the hood, sure, a little bit of jank, a lot more to do here, but at its core, at its surface level, left click. You got it. I believe in you. So those expectations set in the early game of we just left click and right click definitely get shattered a little bit when you go towards the end, and I can see, like I said, why that might be jarring. Maybe it's content creators. Fuck those guys, am I right? Please like and subscribe. No, but like you see all these, I'm not going to throw things on screen because I don't want to like call anyone out. I don't think this is a negative thing necessarily, but like you see all these people being like, the grind took me 500 hours, but I finally have the best cape in the entire game, or this is the hardest content ever released, or the clickbaity bullshit that you see, and then they do like, they talk about like how it was like the most intense thing in the entire world and how it's harder than every other game that they've played, and how there's some dramatization that happens for the sake of content creation, which is fine, but you know, it begins to bubble up and you see a lot of opinions about this late game stuff start to kind of become standardized as a result of that, and it's not necessarily true. Kind of in a similar vein of wrote down niche game fart huffing. It's just not exactly clear what I mean by that, but in game communities, when you start to like get to the point where you're interacting a lot with the people who play the game, and you consider yourself a part of the community, and you're consuming content and you are reading about the game a lot, you tend to like idolize or like put these unrealistic expectations on the content. And I think it's hard for some people to like pull back and be like, yeah, this is a 20-year-old clicking simulator for repetition enthusiasts like myself. I'm not dismissing the fact that it's complicated, but you know, we tend to, when we're really engrossed in a piece of media, tend to hold some parts of that media to an unrealistic standard, which is just not the case. I think the depth at which some of this content is covered scares the shit out of people. I want you guys to imagine you're not like super engrossed in content creation or anything like that. You play RuneScape and you know that the best in slot cape is that infernal cape you see some people wear. And you go, I want that, right? And so you Google how to do the Inferno or Inferno guide or something like that, right? On YouTube. You look it up on YouTube. And the first thing you're hit with is like a 4-hour long nitpick of every single mechanic inside the Inferno. I'd go soft too, brother. Are you kidding me? Like, I can't sit here and watch this man's dissertation on every single part of the Inferno. This is like kind of similar. When I wanted to learn how to do Chambers of Xerix, I searched up Cox's Guide, and the first thing I saw was a 2.5-hour long guide. Brother, I can't be fucked. Are you kidding me? Imagine how people who don't engross themselves in content creation feel, you know? And I'm not saying that it's unnecessary. All of that information is good and well, but if you're trying to get a cool new item and you want to learn how to do it, and you immediately are hit with that and think, oh, I have to watch a 4-hour guide to figure out how to do this. No shit, you're not going to think you can do it, right? Another thing that could be contributing, and I want to remind you as we're listening through all this is all conjecture. I don't know. I don't have numbers. I can't say why people feel the way that they feel. It's ridiculous. But these are just some thoughts and ideas. Another one is cape sellers, right? How many people like sit at the GE and all they see is fucking pink clay, pink clay, pink clay, spammed all the fucking time at the GE, especially if you're one of those like 1500 guys who like, you know, not super into the game, but want to learn more about it, and you see that this item is being sold, right? People will hop into your account and do it for you, and that immediately sets an unrealistic expectation of this shit, right? Like someone has to pay you, like I don't know how much a cape is now, probably like 50, 80 bucks or some shit like that, but like you have to pay someone like 50 bucks to go and do this for you. That's like, that must be really hard if they have people who do it professionally, and then people actually do fall for it, and they pay some cape seller to do it for them, and that just like feeds into this negative cycle. And you got people who are like, yeah, I bought my 1KC or I bought my cape because I just couldn't do it. Could you not? Did you really not have time? Was it really that hard? People who buy capes and people who sell capes are always going to exist, and it just contributes to the unrealistic expectation or unrealistic standard we have of this content. And on a side tangent too, like I'm not trying to dismiss it, it's still hard, but like the Inferno back when it came out and you had to do like Armadil and a T-bow is so much different than doing it in full Masori with just the base guard now and like the cheese that you can do, or like Eldritch Staff if you want, and like it's much easier content now than it was before. I am still shocked and appalled. Like when it first came out, and people were selling capes, like I can maybe get that, but like nowadays, like with the new prayer thing, dude, like the what is it, the not prayer restore, but like it gives you prayer over time. Like that's just fucking ridiculous, man. You know, and again, 1KC here. Don't let me tell you what is and isn't easy, but like compared to back in the day, it's so much easier to do this. It just surprises me that there are still bots constantly advertising for cape selling, because if people weren't buying capes, those bots wouldn't exist, I'll tell you that. And then the last thing that I got on my list of conjecture here is dying isn't fun. RuneScape is at its core a giant RNG based Skinner box. And for those of you who know, and for those of you who are familiar with a little bit of reinforcement psychology, you can get a lot more progress with positive reinforcement than you can with negative reinforcement. So dying isn't very fun. Getting good drops is. You probably, you know, if you have to do a piece of content, if you have to die at a piece of content over and over and over again, you're a lot more likely to turn people off than you are to motivate them to keep staying. I'd be curious to see like what else you guys have to say in the comments below. If you've made it this far, it's moderately safe to say you're invested, so leave a comment and say what was your turnoff. Like if you were hesitant, or like you didn't want to finish content, or felt like you couldn't finish content, or were feeling inferior in any way, why? Did I hit the nail on the head with any of those? Am I way off base? I am genuinely curious. This isn't engagement bait this time. This is me just, I'd like to know more. And so with all that conjecture just vomited out into the aether, what do we do about it, right? A lot of talking of why this might be, but what can we actually do about it? And I think there's 3 things that really fucking helped me. I bitched and moaned about it for a while. You know, I had to choose. I got my TOA Fang kit solo, obviously, before I actually got my Infernal Cape, and a buddy of mine, one of them was kind of poking and prodding and being like, go get the Infernal Cape. Inferno's easier than a 500 solo, dude. You can do it. You have the mechanical skills to go do it. You just need to go and do it. And I had such an inferiority complex about it, and I was not like, I didn't think I had time in the afternoon, or in the afternoons after work. You know, I didn't think that I would be able to sit down and put a 2-hour run. I just didn't think I could do it. And eventually, one of my buddies was just like, dude, just get in there. Just go fucking do the content. It's like, you're gonna die. You're gonna die a lot, and you can't start dying and you can't start learning unless you're actually in the fucking content. So just go do it. Quit bitching about it. And if that's your mental hurdle, I agree, right? We'll try and not rip off Nike here with the just do it, but like, go get in there. If you truly want it, you can't have it until you start doing it. It's just time to rip the band-aid off. You can't start learning until you do it. If you are at the position where you can start learning the Inferno, the 7 restores and the 5 Cerebrews you waste going to wave 63 or wave 40 or whatever, something tells me you'll recover financially. There is zero reason to not just hop in there and start doing the content if it's something you want. This is my motivation to tell you, like, you can do it. I believe in you. The other thing that, like, that I think really, really fucks up people's mental game is you should not sit and grind. You see all these streamers, like, it's my first Infernal Cape. I am going to sit there and I am going to, for 8 hours a day, stream and grind the Inferno, and like a week in, they're fucking miserable. And I'll tell you why. Like, the human brain is not meant to sit and do the same shit over and over and over and over again. We're not designed for that kind of repetition. I know that's counterintuitive. This is the guy who has 70,000 blood runes in his inventory right now, but I mean more of like when you learn a new skill, right? When you are trying to learn something, go look at the psychology of study habits, or like how pros become professionals at what they do, or good practice habits for musicians. It's not sit there and play for 8 hours straight. It's play for 20 minutes, take a fucking break. It's read 5 pages from your textbook, take a fucking break, right? Your brain needs time to digest. I think people forget that. You can't just stuff it full of shit back to back to back and expect it to work. You, one, need sleep to process that, and two, you need breaks. You need time to let your brain breathe, understand, okay, what just happened? I died on wave 20. Let's walk away, take a break. Don't just hop back in there, think. And on a side tangent, like, if you want to, OBS is free, dude, and they got a thing called replay buffer, which is how I record my shit, where you just let it run constantly, and then if you saw a clip that was fun, you hit a button on your keyboard, or you hit a button on OBS, and it records the last 30 seconds of gameplay, right? Just have that shit running while you do content, and if you die, capture it and go look at the last 30 seconds. How did I fuck up, right? That's a phenomenal tool. But yeah, you gotta take breaks, man. These streamers who do that shit are miserable for a fucking reason. It's because they're not making progress, and it's because they're not giving their brain time to understand and develop and breathe with it. And so if you find yourself sending 200 colo attempts back to back to back and aren't getting better, or feel like you're dying to the same stupid mistakes, it's probably because you haven't given yourself time to digest what you're eating there. The other thing too, which is similar, is tilt. In poker, there's a term called going on tilt. When you start losing a bunch of hands, you start performing worse. You start making more rash decisions. You start I said it already. You start performing worse. And this isn't some like shit made up by like a bunch of gambling degenerates. It's a very real psychological phenomenon. I know you've heard of it. You hear it in competitive gaming all the time. When you start getting pissed off, you start performing worse. It's something we've all experienced to some capacity. So if you're sitting there slamming your head against the same thing and failing over and over again, I promise you, after like an hour or two, you're probably just playing like shit because you feel like shit. That was really long. Take breaks. It's important. Stay hydrated. Get your sleep. Text your mother. She misses you. All that shit. And the final one is use your resources. I don't know how hard I can drive this home. Like, RuneScape players are cracked as fuck, man. There is a Zuck simulator. There's multiple Zuck simulators. There is a Inferno Wave simulator. There is a P2 Vertex simulator. There is a Last Row TOA simulator. There's a fucking, like, 2 days after the Coliseum came out, there was a fully 3D modeled Soul Heredit fight simulator. Like, come the fuck on. You know, if you're really truly struggling, and I get the rationale of, oh, I want to do it without outside resources. If you truly want to do that, stop watching this video. Me talking is an outside resource. Hee. You know, I get the rationale of not necessarily wanting to use a simulator, but if you're truly struggling and you just want that one cape, that one fang kit, that one whatever, it's a tool to practice. Fucking practice. And when the Project Zanara stuff inevitably comes out, you can bet your fucking bottom dollar that there is going to be a private server out there that is dedicated purely to practicing late game bosses without having to go 11 waves in or go 69 waves in or whatever. There is going to be practice stuff out there always and forever, and it's going to continue to get better, so why aren't you using it? I've said it multiple times before, but like, my Infernal Cape took 6 months to get. And that's not me sitting down playing 8 hours a day, 6 months. That's me, like, I set a goal. I said, okay, I want to get my Infernal Cape. I'm going to start practicing now. And it was like, okay, if I couldn't really log in or play not AFK today, I was going to spend 20 minutes sometime at night practicing the simulator. I was going to pull up the Inferno Wave simulator. And I was going to practice wave 63 over and over again, right? And I would do that for 20 minutes and then bed. If I wanted to know for sure that I'd kill Zuck when I got there, which I didn't, it took me 2 Zucks, but there was the Zuck simulator fight. I practiced that all the time whenever I had a spare 7 to 10 minutes, right? Insanity, I don't struggle with insanity necessarily. I don't like to run with it because I really struggle with the last row, but there's a last row simulator out there that I practice every once in a while, you know? The 6 top KC, I practiced the P2 Vertex simulator. Like in the top learners that I have, or the top learners Discord that I'm in, it's got a bunch of coaches and people who like walk you through and help you play up to your 25th KC. And one of the things they told me right away was go practice the P2 Vertex simulator if you're going to bring a scythe in, or if you're going to bring in a 5-tick weapon. It's like, yeah, I don't know. If you're struggling enough to watch a video all the way to the end here, then yeah, use your fucking resources, man. There's no reason not to. It's a game. If you want to get better at it, then practice. It's like what I said earlier. This is work. You want to accomplish something hard in a game, you got to work towards it, and that's okay. I think that's pretty much it. I encouraged you earlier, and again, this isn't necessarily engagement baiting, but rip me apart in the comments. Tell me, you know, is this so arrogant of me, the Mr. 1KC in both, Mr. Pink Clay 2 for 1? You know, is this ridiculous of me to put out there? Was it helpful? Do some of you feel a little more at ease? Some of you who had fucking issues getting into late game content or having those mental hurdles, you know, what worked for you? I do really want to know and hear about this. So, yeah, bye.